Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Resident Evil 0. In the last part, we reached the lower lab of the Umbrella Trading Facility after fighting off the infected bat boss fight in Disc 2. And now I'm doing a relatively large backtrack. Because like I said, the room 2 after the elevator in the lab, where we next need to use the hookshot, I like to use that room as my impromptu item box of sorts like the main hall has been thus far in the LP for the next chunk of the game. The thing is, that requires me to go back to the main hall and get all the items from back there again. I'm largely doing this for the ammunition of things and the healing items. And you don't need to do this, but I would recommend it because at this point there's probably still some important items you would have left behind in the main facility anyway. I am still beating up most of this, but just to showcase, the room that the observatory now connects to is that balcony I was talking about where we once fought off some zombies. That leads to this room where we first got the shotgun and the black statue. However, both these rooms now have eliminators, so it's a little more dangerous than it used to be. I might recommend killing at least one of the eliminators on the way back in the case space is limited, but it entirely depends on what you got going on, honestly. Like I think I touched on last part, maybe 2 parts ago now. The most straightforward way to do this is to probably actually move a lot of items into the observatory before you move on to Disc 2 and then move things from there over to the church area. This much of a backtrack is largely an effect of my own making due to my own decisions and how I like Resident Evil storage to work out, so that's mostly my fault. I do respect the origin of this system, considering they were sending up to the original Sweet Home. But if this game ever gets a remake, I hope this system is still there for people who want it, but I hope there's like a Fire Emblem classic versus casual divide of sorts, where the casual mode of sorts actually does have item boxes still. For now, though, we got all the items I care about over here, so now I want to take Rebecca and bring her over here with the hookshot and head up from here. Again, you can send either character up here. In fact, doing that here creates a very notable divide in how you progress things moving forward. The simplest thing is to send Rebecca up here, but there's a more complicated route if you send Billy up here instead. Immediately up here, though, we got a gas tank as well as a note, so let's collect that really quick. Laboratory Manager's Diary. Today, under Director Marcus's orders, I changed the platform entry code. Later, I asked him what the source of the entry code was. He told me it was based on something significant in his children's growth. But the director's a loner. He isn't married, and he sure doesn't have any children. What did he mean? Well, I think we could have a singular guess based off the prior notes, but, maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're wrong. Also, I'm getting my grenade launcher out because, surprise leech zombie. Molotov cocktails are useful against them, as usual. But, this is the first time I'm getting to show off that flame rounds are also extraordinarily powerful against them. I think it takes technically about the same amount of shots, it's just that it's easier to hit them from a distance with the grenade launcher than it is the, Molotovs. Just due to the bullet drop the Molotovs have, so to speak. I am going to be dropping the hook shot in this room, though, because we're still not done with it, but we're not going to need it again for a good while after this room. Effectively not until we're done with the lab section, period. So I could just leave it behind for now and not need it again. I'll just grab it on the way back to other things later on. Got the map for the lab here, and I genuinely do like how Resident Evil 0 places all the maps along the way, because they're much more useful that way. A collection of leech samples is over here. Press the button. One of the samples is glowing. If we think back to an earlier document, Marcus effectively said he hit a sample like a tree. He planted it in a forest. We're gonna need this leech in specific for something later on, but we need to get it out of the container it's in. But like that note also said, we need the stripping agent to do that, so we need to make the stripping agent first. This is the particular item that causes the slight split in how you progress in this section of the game if you send Billy or Rebecca up here, and Rebecca definitely has the more straightforward approach. I am going out of my way to make the Molotov cocktails in this room. But I'm not going to use those on Mimicry Marcus's. At this point, I have the flame rounds on my grenade launcher for that. I'd actually rather use these Molotovs on zombies in crowded instances, mostly because due to the inventory limits and needing the hookshot, I did send Rebecca up here without her handgun. Thankfully, there are other ways of damaging enemies anyway, but at the same time, she's not permanently losing out on the handgun, at least up here, for reasons. Ooh, pretty button on bottom right. I wonder what this does. And you do need to hit this to progress, so you might as well hit it. That does spawn a Mimicry Marcus, technically, yes, but it can't hit me or Billy because it's in the room we first entered from the elevator here in the lab. So if Billy ever leaves that room, he's in danger, but for the moment, he's completely fine. Thankfully, Mimicry Marcuses, I don't think, can ever go through doors. We technically can't do our main goal in this room. Our actual goal is in the room to the left there, but you might want to grab the shotgun shells while you're here, or especially this note for some pretty pertinent information to the rest of the campaign. Leech growth records. February 3rd, 1978. Administer T into 4 leeches. Their will to survive leads them first to parasitism and predation. Then they breed and multiply. Such a single-minded biology makes them attractive candidates for bioweapons research. Afterwards, no major changes observed. February 10th, 1978. 7 days after the administration of T, rapid growth to double former size, signs of transformation emerging, spawning successful. They double their numbers in 1 hour, but the ravenous appetites lead them to cannibalism. Hastened to increase food supply, but lost 2. March 7th, 1978. Provided them with live feed, but lost half when the live food fought back. However, the leeches are learning from experience and are beginning to exhibit group attack behavior. They're also ceasing cannibalism. Their evolution is exceeding expectations. April 22nd, 1978. The leeches no longer exhibit individual behavior, even when not feeding. They move as a collective. They consume everything I offer with remarkable efficiency. April 30th, 1978. An employee has stumbled into my experiments. Can a human be a food source? How will the leeches respond? June 3rd, 1978. A day worthy of commemoration. Today they began to mimic me. Surely they recognize their father. Wonderful children. No one will take you away. Marcus, you needed a hobby that wasn't this. Oh, hello there. Yeah, that's a thing in this game, by the way, still. If a zombie's crawling on the ground and they bite you, you're likely just going to smash their head when you mash out of it. Which in some cases is actually worth taking the damage from them, just to get them out of the way doing that. It appears to be a device for pumping gas into the room next door. The device is empty right now. We're going to need an item to put into there. That is our technical main objective in this room, but we can't get that done yet. However, it looks like some kind of chemical. Put it in the mixing set. You put the red chemical in the mixing set. If you think back to that note I actually didn't find that I mentioned was in that room back in the mansion, we need a red chemical in order to make the stripping agent that we need to get the leech out of the capsule it's in. We just need one more chemical to mix with it to make it. With that said, the canisters for the chemicals we need are both up here. But if you bring Billy up here with the hook shot, they're useless to him because he doesn't have the chemical mixing set. He has the lighter. In the case you set Billy up here, there are 2 other canisters in level design that have the chemicals you need, but they require a backtrack. In specific, the red chemical that we just got is actually pretty close by. It's in the room the Mimicry Marcus is now in, right after the elevator from the church. But the chemical we need to mix it with is all the way back in the main part of the training facility. In specific, it's in the room I mentioned I'm not entering, where that note was that has the blue herbs. Which, for those that don't remember, that's back over towards Marcus's office on the 2nd floor. Technically not the longest backtrack, because there is a direct connection point through that door we unlocked much earlier in the LP from the balcony that the observatory now connects to, and the conference room that leads to that area to begin with. It's just now you need to deal with some eliminators along the way as Rebecca alone, which is troublesome to say the least. At least there's a first aid spray in here. Notably, I think the other note I miss in the LP is in this room in specific, so I'll actually read that out in a moment. For now, though, over here we got the green chemical. This is the one that's also in that room over in the training facility. And now that we combine green and red, we have the stripping agent, so we can now get the key item out of this leech capsule. Notably, the green chemical can actually be used on its own to cure poison, so it's effectively a blue herb that takes up a spare inventory slot. And that can be useful. But there's not many enemies left in the game that'll poison you anyway, so that's not exactly useful to me in the long term. But notably, there's also an elevator here that connects to the reference room, which is the room we left Billy in. So we can now effectively pull the same thing we did with the cargo elevator back at the Ecliptic Express and send items down to him and from him back up to Rebecca. And we're going to need to do that because they're effectively still separated by a good floor here. I am going to actually do some speed up here because I want to send some ammo back and forth between the two of them on top of the key items. Because the blue leech we got out of that capsule a moment ago with the stripping agent, there is a door near Rebecca right now that has a leech-shaped hole in it, but it's a green door and thus won't take the blue leech. So Billy needs that down there for another door. So as I save and then go into the previous room with Billy, let's read the note that's in the room with Rebecca that I never pick up. The investigator's report. Dr. Marcus, co-founder with President Spencer of the Umbrella Corporation, disappeared 20 years ago. The results of his research have been kept under wraps the entire time. The reason became clear here at the training facility run by Dr. Marcus. Well, not here exactly, but underground. When we ventured below, we understood. There we found evidence of Dr. Marcus's research into the T-virus prototype called Progenitor. The evidence of years of hideous experimentation that used company employees as guinea pigs. We cannot know how many were forced to become subjects, but based on the evidence, no less than 20 individuals were involved. Some of them were taken deliberately to keep the corporation's secrets safe. Where the doctor is now, I don't know. But considering the recent rapid growth of the Umbrella Corporation, I can't help but think that this research is continuing. Yes, his experiment lives and continues to grow in the dark. Those things, the fruit of his research, they fill this facility. The rest of the notebook pages are missing. Also doing a quick run back really quickly to the safe because I completely forgot the blue leech in here. Whoops. That's one of those dumbass moments that you honestly can't even begin to fake because it's just like, oh, shit, right. Honestly, though, probably would have been a good idea to use the Molotovs on the Mimicry Marcus with that still in there, though, just so I have the extra inventory space, because then I probably could have at least picked up the herbs that are also in that area. Because the hallway the Mimicry Marcus is in, now that we've unlocked it, there is, I believe, both a green and a red herb in there. So, hey, that can come in handy. Also, in the case you have the inventory set up I do, you actually should kill that Mimicry Marcus now, because we're going to need that extra inventory coming up. The door is decorated with the bust of Marcus. There's a space in the base for some kind of object. And since it's a blue door with a leech-shaped key hole, let's use the leech-shaped key. The lock has been released. There's enough items in this general direction I actually would like to use the Molotovs, but I forget that for a moment. For now, though, let's check out this room, which is probably my favorite looking room in the game. The way they do the light reflecting off the water in the space around that fish tank is just gorgeous. Before we head through that door, we want to pick up this key item, which we're going to need to leave this area later on. The input regulator coil. There's something else here. There's something written on the back of the photograph. To James, to commemorate your graduation, 1939. That face looks a little familiar now, doesn't it?
Judging from the age, that guy could be Marcus's son, or grandson.
Tale of family revenge, perhaps? That would make sense, honestly, given the rest of the narrative of this series. But revenge for what? We've yet to find out. This next room has a couple of zombies in it. They're spread far enough apart that you can probably get the key item in here and get out without them hitting you. The main reason I take them out along the way is that, frankly, I get lucky and get cocky because of that. Because how is that going to happen and I don't feel empowered to kill them both? I think random headshots like that were technically added in Resident Evil 2 with the handgun upgrades you can get there. They're one of my favorite things the series added as it went on. Because for one thing, great use of gameplay mechanics to actually make you save ammo, but also the sound design just makes you feel so powerful. Although I think they're at their most useful in Remake overall for Resi 1, just due to some extra mechanics that game has. So here we got a green leech. There was a green leech door back in the room Rebecca's in, so we need to take that to her. But my inventory's full, so I'm gonna go kill that Mimicry Marcus really quick just to free up that inventory space. This is why I was saying you probably should kill it on the way through there. Albeit, you theoretically could get around it pretty easily no matter what, but I might as well kill it while I'm here. There's not too many of them left in the game. Enough to be a threat, but enough that I can waste the Molotovs here and not get hurt too much in the long run. On top of the fact if I took damage, there was a green and red herb in that room literally right there, and I could just send those up to Rebecca to combine really quick. Speaking of sending it up, Now we got the green leech. Let's go send that up to Rebecca so she can do more stuff up there on her floor of the lab. To once again compliment the game's level design, I genuinely really like this lab section, even if it's not quite the usual lab section a lot of the other classic Resis have in terms of its placement or length. In a lot of regards, this is closer, again, to being the sewer section in the original Resi 2, or the hospital in Resi 3, for instance, where it's short and it's marking effectively the start of the final third of the game, but it's not quite the end game kind of deal. The fact that the lab itself is so condensed, but the characters have such distinct areas to adventure in means you have two puzzle sets going on at once in a way I appreciate. The inventory mechanic is my biggest issue here, and even then, a lot of the inventory issues for me at this point moving forward are largely because of my own stubbornness of bringing items I feel like I need forward in lieu of an item box. By and large, once you leave the main training facility, I think the inventory issues the game has sort of lessens, sort of. Depends on, like, first playthrough debuffs, which ammo you use a lot of up to this point and all that jazz, of course. Like, if I had used my handgun a lot more often on enemies than, like, the shotgun or the grenade launcher up to this point, you'd probably have enough grenade and shotgun stuff saved up that you could just make them your main weapon moving forward and ditch your handgun and handgun ammo slots. Thus, potentially leaving you some extra inventory space moving forward and meaning less inventory management. It's harder to do that in this game, though, than I'd say in Resi 1, 2, or 3. But that's largely because you do have two characters to contend with, and thus the amount of enemies they have in some areas reflects that. Now, I do take a moment here after I give Rebecca the green leech key to also send her her handgun. You really don't need to do that with what's coming up. There's not enough enemies left on this floor to make the handgun worth it, honestly. What you really want her to have is the grenade launcher with some form of acid round in there, particularly if you can have, like, 3 or 4 of those. Basic grenade rounds and flame rounds will still do well enough. Acid rounds are just more effective on what's coming up. So let's actually take a moment and talk about this game's key staff. Not all of its staff, because there's 400 people in these credits, and I think even if I dedicated the entire LP to reading out the staff one by one and what they've worked on, I would literally run out of time and not talk about the game at all. There are 5 key game designers in this game. Takahiro Ushiroda, Takayoshi Miyake, Isamu Hara, Tomohiro Kida, and Yasuhiro Itoge. Going down them in order, Ushiroda was largely a game designer on a lot of Resident Evil stuff through the mid-2010s. They were a game designer on this. They did some planning for Revelations 1. They did a lot of game design for Revelations 2. They were a development assistant for Scarlet Nexus, but also they were development assistant on the Crisis Core remake. Takayoshi Miyake, on the other hand, after this game immediately did work on planning for the Nightmare Before Christmas Oogie's Revenge, the Devil May Cry clone that has a Nightmare Before Christmas skin. They did some work on some of the Dead Rising, Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins stuff, but they came back to Resident Evil once again for the Mercenaries 3D, the PC port of the remake on GameCube, the re-release of this on HD consoles, but then they were a lead game designer for Mega Man 11 and a data designer for Monster Hunter Rise. Isamu Hara went from being a game designer on this to a planner on Oogie's Revenge once again. But then they did some planning on Mario Sports Mix, they did some interface stuff for Kingdom Hearts 3D and the HD remixes for Kingdom Hearts. They were a game designer for Resident Evil 7 period, as well as the lead game designer for Resident Evil 8. By the way, the zombies in here, I just let them bite me because it's more worth me just smashing their head in one shot rather than wasting ammo on them. Tomohiro Kida, on the other hand, is probably the game designer that has the least amount of credits, at least on the game itself. They did this game design for this, and then they planned for Steel Arena International, which was a PS2 game that Konami put out that was relatively unremarkable to my memory of reading about it. And then finally, Yasuhiro Itoge went from being a game designer on this to a game planner for Puyo Puyo Tetris in its original release and then its later Switch and PC releases, and then was a game designer for the HD port of Final Fantasy Type O. So the reason we went into that room with the green leech key was to get the sterilizing agent canister, which we can now use in the machine we found next to the red chemical in order to get the gas in the little room there completely sterilized. Because otherwise you can't open that door, and I think even if you could, it would probably kill you. And if memory serves, I now immediately get lost for a second because I'm overthinking the game's level design. So, afterwards in the credits, after the game designers, is the assistant director for the game, who is Yuki Furukawa. This was their second credit after being in special thanks for Maximo on the PS2. They then immediately did work for Glass Rose the next year. They were in the Darkstalkers credits for the PSP as the director for that. But then they were a planner for Ace Attorney Investigations Miles Edgeworth, as well as its sequel, which never got translated. They were a project manager for Resident Evil 6 and Ashura's Wrath. After that, they did a lot of work on the ports to PC for Resident Evil, like Resi 4 Ultimate HD, Resident Evil Remakes PC port, this is PAC port. Spirit of Justice on the 3DS, they were project manager. Legacy Collection 2, they were project manager. They were project manager Mega Man 11, Remake for 3, Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. They're just generally a pretty high up management position, just consistently. After them in the credits is the original game design, which is Hideki Kamiya, who is a name I think most of us know in some form or another. Creator of Bayonetta, director of the original Devil May Cry, as well as the director for Resident Evil 2, creator and director of Beautiful Joe. He's a personality a lot of us know in some form or another nowadays. So now that we've taken the gas out of that room, we can grab the breeding room key, but the moment you do that, these two zombies will get up and start hunting you. But you can just run away from them as they're standing up, no problem. They don't actually attack as they're doing that. And you never need to interact with those zombies, period, at this point, unless you didn't grab the shotgun shells in that room for some reason. So I'm coming back here to the little freight elevator, not to send the breeding room key down to Billy. That is on this floor with Rebecca. But it's because I want to have certain ammo with Rebecca so that she can take care of the threats in that general vicinity. This is why I was talking about acid rounds earlier. You're really going to want her to have some around now. Though I am also going to go out of my way to send the handgun bullets back down to Billy. Not the handgun itself, just the handgun bullets. Just so he can have that with his stocks and to save inventory space with Rebecca. And now we're ready to go. The breeding room in specific is technically east of me from the current screen perspective, 2 rooms or so. It's back in the room where we press the button that let that mimicry Marcus loose, but also let Billy access the area where we got the green leech in specific. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 10, we're going to pretty much finish up our business here in the lab section of the game before heading even deeper into this game's facilities. See you guys then.